What drew me to Empty Tomb was listening to Pastor Steve preach. And for the first time of all the churches that I've been to, I really felt Jesus' presence. In as much as we give them the gospel, we feed them physically. There's a lunch afterwards, and there's also a clothing ministry. And then there's a benevolence ministry for those who need financial help. What I do down there is what makes me a part of Empty Tomb is I'm part of the benevolence ministry as one of the elders there. And I also love going around and meeting people. The first thing I do when I get there is I go around and greet people. There's a lot of opportunities for people to serve. There's a lot of need down there for people to serve. There's a lot of great opportunities, whether you can be on the prayer team, or possibly we're in need of a Bible study for women, because the women there feel that they need a place to grow and to learn. And so there's a real need for Bible study for women. Men, we have Bible studies. We have Tuesday night at 5 o'clock, there's a prayer meeting. One of the other persons down there has a Bible study on Thursdays, I believe. It's called Overcomers in Christ, where he has people coming in for Bible study. So we have opportunities all the time down there to serve, whether it be just greeting or being a part of the benevolence ministry, or just being available to serve. There's so many opportunities down there. Empty Tomb basically is a mission, and we serve all walks of life. The homeless, drug addicts. We have a prison ministry where we go and pick up people from the Omaha Correctional Facility. So there's opportunities down there to be the hands and feet of Jesus to everybody. There's a lot of lonely people down there. In fact, just last week, one of the prayer requests was for a young lady named Sam, and she loves to have people coming and visiting her. And the prayer request is, if there's anybody that would like to come visit her, just go see her. She's in a halfway house now, struggling with some addictions, but she's a beautiful young lady, and she just wants visitors. That's what people need. People need people who care about them. And that's what I love about Empty Tomb, because people are real down there, and once you care for them, they receive that and they can love on you. And I just love that aspect of Empty Tomb. So Empty Tomb is a great place to actually flex your muscles of who Jesus is in your life. Being the hands and feet of Jesus, feeding them, clothing them, just being an ear to listen. I came to know the Lord when I was 28 years old. I had a life of a lot of drugs and immoral living and alcohol. And my sister was a born-again believer, and she always left me with this Jesus person. I didn't really like to hear the name Jesus. So one year from California, she came to visit us, and she left 2 books on the table. One was the late great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey. The other book was The Power of Living by Billy Graham. And I averted even looking at those books because I knew they were tainted with the name of Jesus from my sister. So one night I was going to the packing house. I worked at a packing house, John Roth and Son, for 12 years, and I was the night engineer who shut the packing house down, and I did some animal byproducts at night, and then when I was done, I shut the packing house down. Well, by myself. I took those books up one night, I picked them up, brought them down to the packing house. I think I'll read these. And the one that caught my attention was the late great Planet Earth. What's so late about Planet Earth? He depicted in there that we're going to go through a whole lot of hell when Christ returns and removes the church. And it was something that intrigued me because I didn't want to be any part of that. So after I read that book, I laid it down and was motivated to pick up the other book by Billy Graham. And I thought Christians, these Jesus people, were people who couldn't live life on their own. They needed a crutch. And so I was a man, I was a man's man. I was rough, tough. I did construction work. I was a bully. So I picked up this other book, and Billy Graham, and in it there was testimonies of people that I thought were real men: Julius Erving, Roger Staubach, some other baseball greats who were men in my eyes, and they were praising and giving their life to Jesus. So that intrigued me to read the rest of the book. And in the end of the book was a prayer that Billy Graham prompted me to read it 3 times with my eyes, my heart, with my eyes, my mind, and my heart. And I did that. And after reading it with my heart the 3rd time, I just broke down, started crying for the first time in my life. And I gave my life to Christ. And from then on, I've been a Christian for over 40 plus years. So.
And as for me, going to Empty Tomb, I was already going to a church over in Bellevue, and I love going to thrift stores. So I always like finding a bargain here and there. So I went and I talked to a guy who had a Jesus shirt on at the register. And I told him I liked his shirt. And he said, "Oh, are you a sister in the Lord?" I go, "Actually, I am." And he said, "Oh." And he goes, he just talked about the Lord with me, and it was really interesting. So we just stood there and talked about the Lord for about 10 minutes. And I went down to New Life quite a bit at the time. And I got to know him in and out of the store. And then he told me one time to just come down to his church. And I said, "Oh, I'm already got a church." And he said, "Oh, I know, but this one, you just got to try it. You know, it's just awesome." And I go, "What's it called?" "Oh, Empty Tomb." "Well, Empty Tomb, what's that?" You know? And so I said, "Well, I've got my own church, but thanks anyway. I appreciate it." And so I was driving down South Omaha one day right after my service in Bellevue, and he was home with a bum knee, and I went down there and just driving by where he told me, and I thought, just I guess for nosiness and curiosity. So I drove by and I went, no, I don't think I want to go to that church, you know. So I drove by, and the Lord told me to turn around and go. And I thought, why? I already went to church today. And he said, "Just turn around and go to that church." And so I did. And no, he told me, he said, "Well, you would turn around for a garage sale." That's what he said. And so with that, I knew that was the Lord. So I turned around in this parking lot, and usually you can't because of the busyness on that particular street, but there was nobody behind me. So I turned around and I went in the parking lot, and I held on to my purse, and I went into church, and I didn't know anyone, and I was looking for the man that I saw at New Life all the time. Oh, that day he wasn't there. So I didn't even know anybody. I didn't even know the pastor. So I walked in, I sat down all by myself, and I really honestly thought that I was the minority that day. And usually, you know, I wasn't there for no reason except for God telling me to go in. So I was sitting there with my purse, listening to the sermon. And at the very end, the pastor got down, knelt on his knee, praying for a man up front with tears. And all I seen was humbleness. And it touched me, because I usually didn't see pastors get on their knees to pray for people on the altar, you know, and this wasn't an altar, it was on the floor, but it was beautiful. So I went up to the pastor afterwards and I said, "I just want you to know I love your service." And he said, "Oh, it's not, I love your ministry," I said. And he said, "No." He said, "This isn't my ministry, it's his." I go, "I know, but you know what I mean. It's beautiful." He goes, No. He corrected me again. He goes, "But it's not mine, it's his." And then I said, "Oh, okay." So I thought, well, he put me in my place. So then I left. And when I left, I told Steve about it when I got home. I go, "Steve, there's something down there. We've got to go there." And we had no problems at our church we were going to at all. We loved our church. And he goes, "No, Gail," he goes, I don't feel released to do that right now." I go, "Oh, Steve, you just have to go." Well, he didn't go for a few months. And then one day we were off that church for another service that they were having. So we went to that, and Steve really liked it. But he still wasn't released from our church to go there, and it took 9 months. And it was from a sermon that our church was preaching about just about, I don't remember exactly what it was.
Being a servant.
It was about being a servant, yeah. And so with that, Steve knew that it was time. And so we left that church, but Steve went to this pastor right away on that same day. And he went up to him and he explained, and he said, you know, you have my blessing. And we went to Empty Tomb ever since, and it's been 17 years. And we love the people down there. I love the women down there. They're all my friends. I love them. We're a family down there, actually. You know, we're all a family. We see each other, and it's not phony. It's sincere. It's real. We see each other during the week sometimes. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do. But we have get-togethers to get people out. It's beautiful. I love it. So it goes beyond on from Sundays, just being there on Sunday. It goes during the week. It goes into friendships, so they can trust you, and that they want to be with you. You got to be sincere to them, and maybe take them out to lunch. Maybe they don't get to go to lunch very often, and take them out and pay for it. Show them that they're a blessing to you, because they are. They're a blessing to me. I love being with them. I love to hear their stories and want to help them. And if they have a problem, I want to help them solve it, you know, in a spiritual way too, but sometimes in a practical way, you know. And that's where it really meets your Christianity meets the road, you know, when you want to do something practical, you know, in their life, so that they could see that you're sincere.
Yes. How I met Gail, I was in the service. I got out in 1974, and my parents actually set us up. I had a vision when I was a small child that I was going to marry a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl. All of my relationships were blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl. I only had one that was a dirty blonde. She was kind of brunette blondish, but all of them were blonde-haired, blue-eyed. So I went to the place where my parents visited for dinner, called the Drawing Room, the Caneglia restaurant. And after I got out of the service, they bragged about that my parents did to this waitress who was my parents' waitress, that, hey, my son just got out of the service and I'm going to bring him in. You can be introduced to you. She probably didn't think much of it, but we brought the whole clan, my aunts and uncles, my grandma and grandpas, and the whole family. There's
Table for 12.
There's 8 of us in this family. So we're all got this big 12, 13, 14 top table. And here comes this blue-eyed, long, blonde-haired young girl, and my eyes popped out of my head. You ever seen that cartoon where the wolf, his eyes pop out of the head, and he's hooting and hollering? That was me. I saw this young lady, and I'm going, wow, you know. So 49 years later, we're still married. Love and life.
As of yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
The 17th was our anniversary, 49 years.
And I wasn't interested in him when I met him, because he had short hair and just got out of the Army. But I had to go out with him because his parents were good tippers for me every Friday night, and they knew me personally. So I just kind of said, yeah, you can have my number. And I thought I'll go out with him once and make him happy. But I liked him. He was interesting and nice. And so I continued to go out with him. And there was a couple times that he'd call and I didn't answer, but then he pursued me some more, and I finally answered. And is that right? Yeah.
Tell him what attracted you to me at the bar.
Oh, and then I asked him if he...
Well, not that, but how was you attracted to me at the bar?
Oh, at the bar. Okay, we went to Mark's Smiling Faces out in Council Bluffs, and that was a place where all the young kids always went and got their ID and went and drank out, had some beers on Friday nights. So I went with my girlfriends usually, so I knew that bar, so Steve took me there. But all these girls that were about my age, I'm 2 years younger than him, and they flocked to him. And I mean, they were good looking girls. They were my age. And I'm like, oh, wow. There was like 8 of them around Steve. He just got out of the Army. And they're just like, Steve, I'm so glad to see you. And they're hugging him and kissing his cheek. And I'm like, who are these girls? So I thought maybe there's something to him that I don't know about. So anyway, found out later, his sister is my age, and she wasn't there that night, but it was all of the girlfriends that were hugging on him, you know, and of her girlfriends. Steve, you know, like big brothers, Kathy's big brother. And I'm like, oh, that's who it was. Okay. And I'm thinking, oh, these girls are something. They must really like him. So it just kind of threw my thought process back to him in a different way for a little bit. So
Cute.
that's God,
It
you know.
was.
Yeah. So we just continue to date, and here we are. I came to the Lord about 1 week after Steve did.
Yeah.
I was at home, and Steve left me those 2 books that he spoke about, and I didn't want to read the late great Planet Earth because it was too long. So I wanted to read the other one. It had pictures in it. That was easier. And I had some baby magazines I had to read, and Steve said, "No, read these." And so I took the Power of Living, and I read that one. And I didn't know what I was supposed to read because he never told me. He just told me to read it. And I got to this one part, and it was very simple for me. I was just always thinking I was a good Catholic girl. And I went through all of the catechism and the confirmation and, everything that you're supposed to go to in the Catholic school. I mean, we went to church every Sunday. Um, and when it came to this part, God helps you with everything in your life, even balancing your checkbook. Wow, he does. He cares about that little thing. Well, I'm thinking that's such a little thing that he wouldn't care about, but that's a big thing to me. So I always cared about if a penny was missing, in my checkbook. I had to figure out where it was. And so that was for me. And so I just went, wow, I didn't know God could care about that. And I took that, and then I continued to read the rest of the book. And it said, if you want God in your life, you can read this prayer 3 different times, once with your eyes, once with your mind, and once with your heart. And so I go, oh, okay. So I read it 3 times, and it was the sinner's prayer, which I didn't know at the time. Then I read it again. Now this time I did it with my mind, and the next time I did it with my heart. And I felt really good, but I called Steve at that time, and I said, Steve, what did you want me to read in that book? He was at work. And he said, well, what did you read? And I told him what I read, and he said, honey, we're born again. Oh, we are? Okay, I don't want all that praise the Lord stuff around our house, though. And I did say that, I remember. Yeah. And he said, oh, no, I know, we're not going to be like that. And so and then he told me we had to go to another church. And I was going to St. Bernadette over here on 42nd. He wasn't, but I took the girls all the time, every Saturday night. And he said, we have to grow. And I said, oh gosh, Steve, what's my mom and dad going to say? And he said, Gail, he goes, you need to really know that God's going to grow us, and we have to grow, and we can't really grow in the Catholic Church that fast. So we need to go to another one. So he found this other church up on the highway, and it was called Calvary Christian Church. Didn't know anyone there, not a soul. Didn't know anyone that used to go there, anything. And we went into the parking lot, and we have a handicapped daughter, and she was 6 years old at the time with a wheelchair. And then we had our other 2 daughters. They were like 2 and 3. And we were thinking they were going to scream. So I brought Cheerios and all that kind of stuff. And so, not scream, but, be out of order. And so we prayed in the parking lot. And when we got in there, Bob Curry, he came up to us, said, how old is she? How old is she? And how old is she? She goes down the hall. She can go down this hall, and she can go down. I said, what? You're going to take my kids? Because in the Catholic Church, you don't do that. You keep your kids with you, and you give them Cheerios in the baggie, And so he said, no. He goes, we'll take all 3 of them. Took even my handicapped daughter, put her in the 1st grade, and introduced her. It was beautiful. And we went, and we stayed there for 10 years and grew like a weed, grew. And what we really found at Calvary was love. We found love, didn't we? Right. They showed Christ a lot of love.
Yes.
And we grew really, really fast. And we went every Sunday. Every time the doors were open, we were there. Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. We just wanted to be there all the time. It was just like a sponge. It was a beautiful.
We learned the personal effect of a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we did.
Instead of the non-visible God who's up there in eternity somewhere, not involved in human affairs. We learned that Jesus Christ is involved in human affairs, and you can have a personal relationship with him. That's where we met the real Jesus.
Yes, it is. And also my mom, when we went and told my mom and dad,
Yes.
they were very upset.
Catholicism teaches that that's the only church.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of there are proselytes. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
hell. Catholicism is the only church. So when we became born again believers and went over to her mom and dad's to tell her, hey, you guys, we're leaving the Catholic Church, they thought, where did we go wrong? We
Mm-hmm.
raised you according to how we're supposed to raise you in the religion,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys are leaving the church, and they thought we were lost, you know. But what drew them to hear us and talk about Christ was they saw now we're reading the Bible. My little baby girls are praying.
Mm-hmm.
We pray before every meal. They're seeing us dedicated to going to church each and every week, and also Bible studies on the weeks. They're watching our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism is you go to church on Sunday and you live your life for the rest of the week outside of the Bible, outside of Christianity. And then you go back to church and you're okay. But you're not okay, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that realization that woke me up that as a Catholic, you're okay. Once you're baptized and confirmed, you're good. You're good to go. You know, and you're not.
Empty Tomb's our family. You know, we love Empty Tomb. Come check us out. You know?
Yeah. A unique church. It's a unique ministry. And there's a lot of need there for
a lot of
people
serving.
to serve. Yeah. Amen.